All right, and we are back with another episode of the MMU Mind Made Up podcast. I'm your host, Al Ramsey, and I want to thank you for joining me today and tuning in, listening to this episode. In this episode that I'm getting ready to drop right now, I got to interview my younger cousin, Austin Jones. We talked about some real dope things, financial literacy. This was the last episode that I did record in 2020, so as you can see, it's 2021. So I was a little bit delayed on the editing and releasing of this episode just due to some personal things I had moving around. I ended up moving into a new house. Um, so that kind of took priority over me sitting down and getting this episode together. But nonetheless, it was a great episode. I'm really thankful that I was able to chop it up with Austin. I hope you all enjoy this episode and be on the lookout for some big things coming in 2021. We're going to be switching over to a video real soon here. Also, you're going to be able to check out all the other episodes as well as the new ones coming out on all your streaming platforms. So we're really stepping it up in 2021. 2020 was a good test run. It allowed me to get my feet wet in the interviewing game, and I'm just trying to expand on it and grow. So leave me some comments. Hop in the DMs. Let me know. Let me know your feedback and everything like that. And just expect a lot more because we're gonna turn it up a lot for 2021. I got some great interviews scheduled. I'm really excited to present to you all this knowledge and just grow with me as I'm continuing to expand on the podcast. I'm definitely developing more of a passion for it, so I'm taking it a lot more serious this year. But if you've been listening, I appreciate you. If you're new to listening, I appreciate you too. But just stay locked in because I got some exciting things coming 2021. Anyway, let's jump into this episode right here. Like I said, it was the final episode of 2020. So here we go. MMU Mind Made Up podcast.
Drop, hold mics like ponytails tight and bobble ops. Stop, stick around, come through and dig the sound of the fly brown 6060 cycle. Who throws a dick around? Bound to go 3 plat. Came to destroy rap. It's an intricate plot of a b-boy strap. Femstat cats get kidnapped.
My name's Austin Jones. I have the distinct pleasure of being Mr. Ramsey's cousin. I currently work for Visa, analyst. I do consulting there in their financial services area. I'm also a real estate agent on the side, work for Keller Williams, licensed in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. So I kind of jump between everything from real estate to investing to fintech and financial services. So appreciate you having me.
Big Bossin. Yeah, I have the pleasure of being your cousin, man. Man is on the grind, for real, man. Let's just go ahead and jump right on into it, man. 2020 has been a wild year. Would you say?
Oh my God, it's been insane. Oh my God, it's gonna be one for the books.
This is definitely, this is definitely one for the history books. I don't know what story is going to be told in those history books, but if I had to write it, man, this has been a year of confusion, a year of disappointment and letdown, a year of sadness, a year of a lot of introspection has been done this year. And I've been telling people this, like 2020 for me has done 2 things mainly. It's allowed me to see how much time I do and don't have depending on how I use my time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's real.
Because it really gave you a chance to kind of sit and look at yourself in the mirror, if you will, and see where you're taking your life and how easily things can be stripped from you. You know what I mean? With this whole lockdown, this whole COVID thing. And then even before that, all the racial injustices that we've been facing, it just had you kind of feeling like you wanted to give up on the country sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's real.
It's just
such a good point.
Man, it's been a crazy year, man. But I will say overall, yo, on a personal level, and I think that a lot of people that I've been speaking to kind of say the same thing. This has been one of the most productive years I've had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Has it been like that for you too?
I totally agree, man. I mean, I think having that time, I mean, starting out, I felt like I didn't really have much time at all just because I was trying to get used to this new life of, you know, living at home, working at home, and, you know, everything was just different. But eventually I found myself with some extra time, and I was able to kind of branch into new spaces. And I just started doing different things. That's how I picked up real estate. And I mean, I started doing, you know, I started DJing and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So
are you DJing now?
Man, look, I just got the turntables. I don't want to oversell myself. You know, we got some DJs in the family, so
that's true. That is true.
I don't want to go too far, but I mean, hey, look, I'm still just, it's another space I'm interested in. So I'm like, why not? I think
why not?
You know, this time is just giving me that opportunity to kind of look into different things and just see what I really like. And so
definitely.
I'm loving it to some extent, but at the same time, it's, you know, it's tough. It's tough times. So.
It is tough times, man. What would you say is like one of the biggest lessons that you've learned in 2020, if you had to narrow it down?
Wow, man, so many lessons. I think like one is just like appreciating the little things, you know what I mean? And I felt like I always have tried to be that kind of person, but just, I mean, seeing as how many parts of our just day-to-day life have been sort of stripped away. I mean, everything from just being able to be out around people in, you know, certain settings. It's just like things that we may never have even imagined being taken away from us have been taken away. So I think the lesson for me is just like really appreciating the little things, and, you know, whether it's family or friends or just experiences, just kind of like taking in the moment. Because I know now when I go out, whether I'm, you know, going to a socially distanced event or whatever, even if I'm just going to, you know, the grocery store, I'm like taking full advantage of the moment. I'm like appreciating everything. Like if I got there, I'm like, you know, I'm like, hey, I'm happy I made it here safe. Like,
yeah, definitely.
You know, it's just a different mindset.
Different appreciation. Yeah, man. And honestly, for me, that's been one of the biggest things as well. And I've been praying on it. I've been meditating on it. And I've just been trying to be more present, like you said, just appreciating each moment, because it's so easy to get caught up in the daily routine of, you know, being on the grind, making sure this is taken care of, making sure you're getting to work on time, making sure you're making time for your significant other or for your friends or whatever interests and hobbies that you have, just trying to have that overall balance while not letting the clock run out. You know what I mean? Just trying to be more present, man. I've definitely set my intentions on that for this year and moving on into 2021, man. What do you think, man, 2021, do you think, I don't know, man, this COVID thing is crazy because, you know, I'm down south, I'm in Florida, they not taking this serious. People walking in the stores without masks, people acting like, you know what I mean, like it's a big joke, kind of. So what do you think, as far as this virus goes, man? You think 2021 is looking promising? You think what do you think?
I think. I mean, the media makes it seem like 2021 and things will be back to normal, but I think we're gonna all have to take it slow and steady. I mean, you know, first we gotta watch the first release of the virus, see what happens there. You know, see if there's any, you know, if anything comes of that, right? Of all these people getting a vaccine, right? So it's just going to be interesting to see how things sort of change. And I think the name of the game is just going to be taking everything slow and steady, like not running back out, not jumping into too much right away, but just kind of watching, you know, watch the vaccine, watch the stock market, watch the housing market, watch all these different spaces. Because, I mean, it has a potential to be, at least we know it'll be better than 2020. So it has a potential to be a relatively good year, but I think it's also we got to just brace ourselves. So, I mean, I don't know. I think the beginning may look similar to 2020, but hopefully towards the end we're back to normal.
Yeah, I don't, you know, I forget who I was talking to, but I was saying like now that we're so accustomed to wearing masks around people, it's kind of strange to think that there was a time where we didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what does that look like moving forward? Because I believe in other countries, even before the virus hit, wearing masks out in public was a thing. You know what I mean? Just because the potential of getting sick is always there. I don't know. I feel a little paranoid now. But yeah, 2021, I'm hoping that I hope that America and the rest of the world, honestly, we just go about things the right way, taking our time with it, like you said, and not just being such in a rush to get back to things before everything is under control. But do I have faith that that's going to be the case? I don't know. Everybody, one side wants to stir the pot, the other side, thinks they're right. So it's just a bunch of turmoil. I really just try to base my decisions and everything on my belief that, I'm going to be all right. My inner circle, my family, we're going to be all right. We're going to take the appropriate actions needed to, just be able to survive, man.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point.
So I wanted to get into I definitely, I want to talk about real estate, and we're definitely going to get there. But I want to get into sort of what it is you do, like your full time, and then we're going to get into that. So for everybody that doesn't know you, which is probably anybody that you didn't listen to this podcast, all my viewers aren't going to know you, right? So just go ahead and tell them what it is that you do, what you went to school for, and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to school for finance and information systems. So info systems is just like the business version of IT or comp sci kind of thing for business. So always have kind of been interested in fintech back to college, that sort of like that intersection of both finance and technology. So fast forward to Visa. So my job is as a consultant. So when you think about Visa, we're kind of like a payments network, right? We're kind of like, people see the credit cards and they see the name, but really it's a network for your payments, because when you make a purchase, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. Where is your money going, right? Who has your money first? Where is your money going? Who's transferring that, right? So my job at Visa is to basically work with the banks, what we call issuing banks, people that would basically hold your money, kind of when you go to sign up for a checking account. Mm-hmm. We work with those banks to make sure that the credit card programs they're putting out are working for people, they're successful, and the banks are happy working with us, but they also have happy customers. So a lot of my day-to-day is like collecting data on people, trends, things like picking up COVID and seeing how has COVID affected the market, or how have some other things affected credit card holders year over year, quarter over quarter, that sort of thing. So as a consultant, we kind of give them that strategy, and Visa kind of plays this middleman role of sort of connecting the customer to the bank and so forth.
And then with that data that you collect, what do you then do with it?
Yeah, so a lot of times it's really used for banks to kind of assess their investments. Like, banks want to be able to see, hey, like, are we putting money in the right places? Whether it's, hey, do we need more marketing in a certain area to get more people to sign up for a certain card? Or are we spending too much money on a certain card in a certain place? Are there other technologies that we might consider? Like today you have things like tap to pay. So thinking about those things is kind of my job, and I work with other consultants to kind of help the banks sort of look at the data that Visa collects on, hey, because when you're that middleman, we're not just working with PNC Bank or Capital One. We're literally working with multiple hundreds of banks, right? So we can kind of help them understand the market, the whole overall, what we call the benchmark of, hey, this is how your competitors are doing. This is how other banks are doing in the space. And this is what you can learn from these other banks to sort of, make your business stronger. So we're going into the data on our end. We're analyzing it to see, hey, what are the key insights that, we've looked at? What are the things that we're sort of learning over the past year or over the past month or what have you, and what's the story here and how is it valuable to a bank? So, I mean, this year the big story is really COVID, and it's been interesting to see what, like for our perspective, we go in and we may look at industry breakdowns to say, okay, travel might be dropping off, but online retail is increasing. So by understanding those trends, we can go back to the bank and help them better see, okay, this is where we need to pour our investments into these spaces, right? This is how we need to structure our credit card rewards program so that, people are incentivized to maybe go and spend that money on online retail instead of trying to force rewards in restaurants where the programs may be a lot less successful. So that's kind of my role as a consultant.
You are definitely an observer of the game for sure.
It's interesting.
Being in that spot. I mean,
awesome.
Just collect data in any form is always interesting because it helps with predictions, and it you can just kind of see how one thing can affect human behavior.
Right.
And
exactly.
So it's interesting on a deeper level than just the financial spending habits and investments and everything like that, but literally how our life has been affected by something. And in this instance, it's COVID. Yeah, because when you said that, like I know a lot of investors that invest in Airbnb, and actually as of lately, I think like people have been doing good. But I know when it first hit and the travel ban was implemented, a lot of short-term rental holders, they were taking a hit, you know what I mean? Because nobody was traveling. So then you think like in your job, you're like, okay, if something is down here, it's up somewhere else. If everybody's traveling, everybody's home. Everybody wants to spend money. So, of course, online shopping has to go up, you know what I mean? It's so interesting that you have a job doing that and you went to school for that, because one of the topics that I want to speak to you about is financial literacy. And I feel like just from speaking to you, and it's crazy, man, because even as a little kid, you were so bright, bro. Like, I was like, how old are you right now, Austin?
I'm 24 right now.
You're 24. So I'm 27. It's not that big of an age gap now, but when we were younger, it always felt like it. But I just remember you would be like, so Alex, man, talk to me. What's going on? Like super, like, just there already, bro, and I loved it. And to see what you blossomed into, it makes perfect sense. And it's just really cool talking to you about this type of stuff, man.
Hey, man, sure. I appreciate that. I've just been watching you and been watching so many people along the way. So I mean, big thanks to you for that, man.
No, for sure, man.
So
talk to me as far as, because I believe that you're someone that you have a good sense of financial literacy and financial responsibility. Would you say that's true?
I'd like to think so, but hey, you can always get better. So.
Definitely, you can always definitely get better. Where do you think? So, first of all, define financial literacy for me in your own words. Like, when you hear financial literacy, what do you think of?
Yeah, so for me, what I think of, I guess I break it into two sections. It's kind of like one. This concept of budgeting, or what do you do with the money that you have? What are your habits around spending and saving and that sort of thing? But then to take it a step further, I think the second part is kind of around investing and how do you sort of make $1 out of 15 cents, right? Like how do you take your money and make sure it's growing? So I think financial literacy kind of involves those two things. And when you do those two things well, I think that's when you sort of can be considered financially literate. So.
That is, you broke that down very simple and very detailed at the same time. Because, as I'm learning, okay, another question. When do you think, how do I frame this question? Whatever level of financial literacy you have, do you feel like you were always on that path, or when was that sort of wake up like, oh, okay, I understand what I need to do with my money and why? Or have you always been good with money?
I mean, to be honest with you, I still kind of feel like, there's so much to learn because I've just over these past few weeks started talking to somebody about options trading. And it's just like, there's so many, maybe you kind of get the basics of the budgeting part. But when you get into investing, oh my God, it's like a lifetime worth of knowledge out there. So, personally, I feel like I still have a long way to go. But, it's a gradual, I think for me, it's always been a gradual buildup of just kind of starting with the budgeting standpoint of like, hey, what are my spending habits early on? How am I making sure that's not, those things, my spending habits aren't impacted too much by like outside forces, whether it's like marketing or, social media and culture and all these things. So I think I started there. And now I'm kind of, and you can always save more and get better at budgeting, but now I'm kind of moving into the investment side of like, okay, what are all the different ways I can invest my money? How do I make my money work for me?
That's dope, man. Bossing up for real. Yeah, I would say, man, I'm still in the sort of early stages of mastering where my money goes because I've learned, man, early on, like, I think I learned it before I realized I learned it, if that makes sense. But what it is I've realized that if you don't direct your money, it will direct itself. You will find a way to spend it because you're always under pressure to spend. Every time you open your phone, you're hit with marketing and advertising. Man, I was working at Target and I was putting away just an item, but I had been putting it away so much and seeing the different like packages and different, this one comes in this size and it's this much off, and to the point where I felt like I needed it because it was a good deal. Like, you know what I mean? And we're hit by that all the time without even, sometimes it's right in our face and sometimes it's subtle, but we're always under that pressure of like, yo, I want to spend my money. And I feel like I'm getting to the point where I'm becoming more in control of where my money goes and just budgeting for sure, because that's putting it where it goes, but just understanding where it goes and seeing it, like actually writing it down. Like I remember seeing my parents always like balancing their checkbooks or whatever, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, yo, why do you just keep it in your mind? But like really, you have to see where your money is going, and you learn a lot about yourself by seeing how your money flows. Like I really have learned that when I was in the military, man, a majority of my money was spent on entertainment. So that's the instant gratification, sort of, I don't want to say sin, but that was my weakness. Like, yo, what? We've been working all day. It's the weekend. Let's go crazy in the club. Like I was just telling my girlfriend, there were times that I had spent like $80 in the club on drinks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just
tell me about it, man.
literally pissing my money away, because that's all the alcohol turns into is piss. Like you just pissing your money away. I had somebody tell me that. I'm like, damn, that's so true. But I couldn't get a hold on it yet because it bothered me to know I had money and I wasn't out spending it, honestly. But now I'm at a point where I can't live like that. And I'm so glad that I'm having this awakening of just watching where my money goes and being intentional about where I choose to put it. And a lot of my money, honestly, used to go to food. Like, that's another thing. So when you're intentional about one aspect in your life, I feel like everything else has to fall in place too. Because how are you going to be intentional about food if you don't go grocery shopping and you don't have food in the house? And then if you're always on the run, then, okay, you have to implement even more discipline. Now you got a food prep so that you don't have a situation where you on lunch, but you didn't bring any food, so you're going to run and order something, like, because that becomes a habit. And it's just literally financial literacy it has to, if you have a good sense of financial literacy, it's going to lead you to a life of discipline, because one choice can affect everything else. It's like a domino effect.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I really like what you said too about how, like, once you open up those finances, you open up your spending, you can kind of get a good understanding of yourself, right? You're like, wow, like, you like entertainment, or you like putting money in, food or whatever it is. And it's like, that's so important. Like, just doing that first step of, like, I feel like looking at all your expenses and just kind of stepping back and saying, hey, like, what can be cut out of this picture? And then from there, once you have that understanding of, like, hey, these are the areas I got to do better, you're at least going to be a lot more conscious when you're, in a predicament where it's like, okay, do you spend an extra $20 on food or extra, $20 on entertainment? You can kind of check yourself at the door. So
Exactly.
that's incredible.
And without that awareness, then the change never happens. You know what I mean? You're just running around blind, don't know where your money is, waiting for the next pay period. And that's the rat race right there. That's what it's about. It's literally exchanging your time for money so that when you have that little bit of freedom, you spend it unwisely. Like you just out there buying things you don't need just because you think you deserve it because you work so hard. But then a lot of people, I feel like I come not from a disadvantage than other people, but I feel like through the choices that I made in my life, I didn't really get a good understanding of being financially literate through others. I just had to learn on my own. Like I didn't really. Do you feel like someone taught you how to be the way you are with money, or do you feel like, I mean, obviously it's going to be through trial and error, but do you feel like you had a good hand kind of guiding you to what you should do with your money or how to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've definitely, from family and, friends and just having a lot of conversations about money, that definitely has helped. I'm also a finance major, so just kind of understanding.
Yeah, school definitely got to help.
Yeah, that definitely has helped as well. Just kind of understanding that, both budgeting and investing kind of thing. But, it's something I'm also working on for sure. So I want to continue to get better for sure.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. See, and I think for me, if I would have went to school and really just honed in on something, that I probably would have learned these lessons maybe a lot earlier, or I don't know. I feel like I had to learn it. I had to bump my head when I probably could have avoided it in certain ways. But I will say one thing, as far as like it's one thing to be aware of where you're spending it, but then it's another thing to be aware of how to make your money grow without just asking for a promotion, which is the investing side. And you brought up something called what was option investing?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, options. Yep.
So what is that?
So basically, there's different ways you can invest in a stock. So first you have, just a standard where you would buy a share of Amazon. Say a share of Amazon it's $100. I think right now it's $3,000, but say it's $100. You buy it. If the price goes up, you sell it for $110. With options, it's a little different. So basically, you buy a contract or an option to buy shares of Amazon in the future, right? So right now, it's like, say you pay, say Amazon's $100 per share. Say I pay $50 for the option to buy 20 shares of Amazon in the future, right? Options kind of is basically saying, I'm going to put my money up front. I'm going to get this contract to purchase the stock in the future. And if it goes up, ideally you make enough money to break even, right? You want to be able to go above that initial investment that you put into the option itself to own that contract. So it's kind of like a way to sort of invest for the future. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you just buy a stock, you own the company right away. You can open up your app, buy a share of Amazon. You own a share of Amazon right like today, the moment you own the stock. Whereas with the option, it's like you buy the contract today, but you have the option to actually own the shares later down the line. And what happens when they say trading options, a lot of times people aren't necessarily looking to own that many shares. They're looking to give that contract to somebody else that now has to buy it at that higher price. And then you make money on the difference. So I know that options can be a little, sometimes it's a little hard to explain. I don't know if I did it any justice there, but
I think the only reason I was able to follow you is because you can do the same thing with real estate. So that's the only reason I was able to. It made perfect sense. We were just talking about stocks. But my question is, when you buy an option, right, is it set at a predetermined amount, or is it is it all dependent on what the so say I'm buying an option for $50 like you said of Amazon. Oh yeah, is there a time frame where this has to be, you know what I mean, purchased?
Yeah, so that's a great point, and that's all factored in. So the option price is kind of set based on demand and risk and what's the likelihood, right? So like an Amazon option may be more expensive than maybe a higher risk option for a smaller company, right? So there's that. Then as well, for your point about timeline, you have different timelines too. So maybe you have an option for a month. So within that month, you have to sell that option, and when it expires, then you basically have to sell it at its original price. If you didn't do anything with the option within that time frame, so you wouldn't have made any money. But so the idea is that some people trade long-term options where they're like, oh, I want a 1-year option on Amazon. It's like, okay, within that year, you're watching the market, hoping it goes up. Now that's going to be a more expensive option. If you want to, make it a little riskier, maybe increase your odds or whatever, you may shrink the option down to a 1 month. Maybe you get a 1 month option and go from there. So, so to your point, it is very, very similar to real estate. I think you're probably thinking about wholesaling. And, it's kind of like bridging that gap of supply and demand. So you put like wholesale and real estate, very similar. Very similar. So I think that was a good catch.
That is crazy that these games are being played right. And I don't mean games in like a cruel way, but for people that don't know this stuff is going on, this is money being transferred all day long, all night long. These are deals being made that some people aren't even aware that this stuff is going on. You know what I mean? And it's crazy, bro. It is really crazy.
It really is, man. I mean, this is why I'm like, as well as you, like just in that space of like trying to learn about all these things, because it's people, making money and just finessing really all these.
It's paperwork. You're just moving paper.
Yes, exactly.
All you're doing is moving paper, and people are getting rich. Because these aren't no small transactions, especially on the back end. You might put up a decent amount, but the back end, what you're betting on getting, especially I'm relating this to real estate, is crazy. And it's crazy to see that can gross you this amount, but if you go into your job and you work 10 hours, you're not even getting a fraction of what moving this paperwork just did. You know what I mean? And that's the sort of eye-opening part about it that made me say, okay, no matter how long it takes, I'm not stopping until I'm in this clubhouse. You know what I'm saying? Going, I have to, because it just makes no sense doing it the other way. I mean, I think people should do it both. Like you gotta pay your dues. You know what I mean? You gotta pay to play. But first is you got to seek that knowledge. You don't even know what you don't know, type of thing.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
Man, that's awesome. So are you're getting into option investing, or
I'm going to get into it. I've usually just been straight stocks. I did some cryptocurrency investing, but now I'm going to start to look into options. I mean, it really is interesting to me. I mean, because even as a finance major, like everything we focus on is usually just stocks. Like, how do you value a stock? How do you assess it? How do you look at the balance sheet? All of that. But now it's like coming into the real world, I'm seeing like how finance can be flipped into so many different things. And it's like, it's so important we know about these things, because what a lot of people don't realize is like, it's good to, you want to save your money. You want to keep some money in savings, right? That's good. But, if all your money's there, it can be a problem. At the end of the day, you want to have ways to grow some part of your money. I mean, because, with inflation and things like that, the value of the dollar
is going down.
It's going down.
Yeah. It's
so
really
it's
going
like,
down.
That's the only way, you can kind of protect your money is by like learning about these things. And, I think like options is probably a risky place to start. I always tell people like, just start with the S&P 500 ETF, the stock ticker SPY. I mean, that's literally a collection of all the companies in the S&P 500, very relatively low risk. I mean, it's not to say it never goes down, but overall, I mean, to diversify your portfolio like that by investing in an ETF, that's literally like a bundle of all the companies that trade on the S&P 500. I think that's a great place to start. So I just plug that in there too.
Man, you spitting facts, man. You could really when your course coming out, bro? Because I'm going back on this and starting to look some stuff up for real, man. Because you're spitting some stuff. I know nothing about stocks. I was happy to find out I needed to learn how to invest and really make some money and not just exchange time for money. And I fell into real estate and I just been sticking it out. But I know there's so many different worlds of that. So, and I do plan on getting into stocks and learning that stuff. But I'm glad. I'm glad I got you, bro. Because who better to learn from than the fam? You know what I mean? Someone who's really doing it and can explain it so well. I feel like you explain that very well.
Good. I appreciate that. Yeah, man. That's what it's about, man. Keeping it the fam.
For sure, bro. So, I want to move into the real estate, man. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that side of it. I got a few more questions as far as stocks. I'm gonna come back to that. But so the real estate journey, how did that come about?
Oh man, yeah, it's a really good question. So I got my place in DC literally just a year ago. But the first thing that happened when I got my place was I remember one day I opened up my Instagram app. I posted something just in my place. And people were like congratulating me and all that. But then over time, it was like so many people had reached out just asking about how do I get a place in DC? How do I buy a property? Like tell me about your process. Who'd you work with? That kind of thing. And so I was trying to field as many questions as I could from like a buyer's perspective. But then I was like, you know what? I really got to learn more about what real estate is and what this means. Because if I'm going to be really helping my friends, move to DC or get a new place in Maryland or what have you, I got to get licensed. I got to learn about the market. I got to figure out what this real estate thing is all about. My past few months, I've just spent them like really helping my friends get good properties. I guess it's like good properties, right? It's all relative, but I mean, I do think that, if I'm moving people down the street from 78,000 square feet of retail or, in an area where they're building up a Whole Foods down the street, I'm like, these are the things I'm looking at because, at the end of the day, I feel like that's how we build wealth, across our people. And that's, I'm all about that. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I am as well. And I think that it's so important that we start learning more about real estate. I mean, just because it's everything is real estate. Everything. America is real estate. All these countries are real estate. We're just playing a big old game of real estate. It's a big old game of Monopoly. And
Monopoly, yes, sir.
You know what I mean? And to not know you're in the game is a crime, but who you gonna be mad at? You know what I'm saying? So we definitely, as black people, have to get more. And you know what? I think that I feel like a lot of us, either the page is turning or I'm just getting put onto it. But I feel like a lot of people are aware of real estate now, or at least the importance of knowing about it. You know what I mean? Whether they're active in it or anything. But I think I don't think it's a secret anymore. I feel like most of us know, like, okay, yeah, real estate is something that I definitely have to pick up a book about and start to ask questions because it's all around us and it's always going to go up in value. Of course, it'll drop every now and then depending on what's going on. But ultimately, all the land that was created is here. But there's people that are popping up every day and are going to continue to pop up. And everyone needs a place to live. So that right there should be enough for the average person to say, okay, let me find out how I can own a piece of land or a property. So real estate is definitely important. I think it's now. How do you compare it to stock investing?
Real estate versus stock investing. So, like in terms of which one, like, is there one over the other, or just kind of like how do they sort of relate?
How would you rate them? Like, what do you think is more important to get into?
That's a good question. I mean, I hate to say it, the finance guy in me is going to say it's kind of good to get in all of them if you can, right? Because I think like the vision is you want to be diversified. You want to have your money in different spaces. Like,
Definitely.
You don't want to put all your money in real estate at the same time. You don't want to put it all in stocks. You want it to be kind of spread out. Maybe you have a little bit of stocks, a little bit of real estate, a little bit of crypto. Maybe you're invested in some commodities or water, orange juice, all these things. So, I think in terms of, if I were to look at the two of them, on one hand, it's like, so the way they compare is they're both ownership in some regard. Stocks is like you're looking to own a portion of a company, whereas real estate is like you're looking to own, it could be a portion of commercial real estate, or it could just be you're looking to own a home. So it's both ownership. I just think that real estate can be, from what I've seen, it seems to be a little more stable. I think just because, when you think about land and property, it's very stable. It's like it's there. It's going to be there. Homes are going to be there. So they seem to have kind of crept up stably over the years without too much fluctuations. The stocks, it kind of depends on the stock. Like there's some stocks that are riskier than others. Some stocks have had growth that is like way exceeds real estate, and then others maybe not so much. So I think it's good to kind of look into both. I think the reason why a lot of people start to look into real estate is usually when they start to think about how much money they're spending to live every month, right? Your living expense over the course of your life is huge. So I think when people start to realize, like, hey, I'm shoveling out like $13,000-$14,000 a year, just to live. At some point, you would want to be able to make that money do something for you. So I think that's where a lot of people say, okay, let me maybe start with real estate. I think a lot of millennials, before they even get too big into the stock market, sometimes they start with real estate because they're like, well, the majority of my money is going towards my living expense anyway. I got this money saved. And yeah, if that's the case, yeah, why not set yourself up to, own a place, and then, that way you can start, sort of getting those, maybe getting those returns. If, depending on the situation, you could invest in real estate. You could just buy a place for yourself that sort of maybe appreciates year over year. So it's different ways to think about it.
For sure. I would say that for me, I think that the reason why I've always felt like real estate was a better investment than stocks is because I felt like the need for real estate is higher than the need for owning a share of a business. Because if the stock market crashes, right, people are still going to have to go home. People are still going to have to, they're going to need somewhere to live. If the real estate market crashes, people are still going to need somewhere to live. You know what I mean? So the value is, it's unchanging. We all need a place. You know what I mean? We all, regardless of what's going on, we all need a place to live. And regardless of what we're considering to be currency, it will be, real estate can make that change. So if the world goes to crypto, okay, there will be companies popping up that implement payment through cryptocurrency in order to live in your house, whether it's rent or whatever. So I think it's ready for whatever change the world has as far as currency goes. And the need is always going to remain until we start moving to Mars. And even then, that's real estate. You know what I mean? So it's just a natural need. You know what I mean? The hierarchy of needs. I
think that's a really good point. I was going to say, to piggyback on that, to your point, this is the first year where, we've seen stocks drop drastically, similar to 2008. But the difference this year, where things were a little different from 2008, was that the real estate market didn't drop the same way stock market did. And so that really goes to your point in saying that, we saw that this year, even through COVID, even through everything going on, the real estate market somehow was kind of able to stay strong to some extent, whereas the stock market kind of tanked off. So, I think the stability you get in real estate from a returns perspective or investment perspective, I do think I could see that being a great option.
And then I was going to say also, I think for the average person that maybe doesn't have any knowledge about investing, but again, they have that awareness. Okay, I need to start investing. I think that they would go for stocks first. I know you said you think people might go for real estate first. I think they may go for stocks first because, again, this is for someone who has no idea about investing. They just know they need to start investing, right? They're like, I ain't got no money for no house, so how am I going to invest in real estate? How do I get into that game? Whereas to, stocks, you can do penny stocks. You can do a lot of there's a lot of different ways to get your foot in the door of saying, hey, I invest in stocks, And there are as well with real estate, but I don't think it's not as common knowledge. It's really not a common knowledge at all.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? And so but that's just from my experience and the people that, I've encountered, because I have a friend who's big into stocks, and we used to talk about real estate versus stocks and things like that. And, his aspect was when I was telling him certain things about real estate investing, the little that I know, or the little that I knew at the time, it was like, this is how you can get your foot in the door. And it literally just really requires some hustle. You know what I mean? And he was just like, man, I didn't know that. I just thought it's a house. I have to buy a house. I have to have money to buy a house in order to fix it and flip it or put some renters in there, blah, blah, blah. But either way, I think both of them are great. And I think the biggest thing is, like you said, the diversity. There needs to be money in a little bit of everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Definitely, bro. So, how many? Now you're saying you're working for Keller Williams, right?
Yeah.
And you've been there for how long now?
I've only been there for like 3 or 4 months now.
So what have you as a real estate agent, all right, what did you think it was going to be versus how is it now? Like, what is it versus what you thought it was going to be? Is it what you thought? Is it better? Go ahead and sort of explain your role and what you think of it so far.
I think, to be honest, coming in, I thought as a real estate agent, I was just going to be walking around with people, looking at homes, looking at the details.
That boy cold calling.
Yeah, I know. I thought I was just going to be cold calling, walking around, looking at homes, like kind of assessing the inside of the homes based on some kind of framework that agents just know. And then from there, selling a home based on that framework. Mm-hmm. But get in there, really, finding a home and looking at homes is a small part of the job. I think for me, the big, challenge or the big part of the job is really the contract stage of just like putting together contracts, negotiations, and just going back and forth with, making sure I'm representing the buyer correctly, making sure I'm, getting them the best deal. So I think that's been a sort of a wake up call. It's like, there is an aspect of looking at different homes, but really a real estate agent's job is to, one, make sure you get a good deal on the home, make sure you're doing all the things you need leading up to purchasing that home, whether it's appraising it, whether it's getting a home inspection done, or what have you. Sometimes there are other inspections involved, right? So just making sure you see the full picture, just because I think now I kind of see real estate as like, I see it as, since the purchase is so large and it involves so much money, it's really good to have somebody that can kind of walk you along that process, because there's just so many things, even like now as an agent, there's so many things that like I have to I have like literally a checklist that I have to look at to make sure I'm not missing anything. Like, oh, wait, did we get the appraisal? Was there a contingency here, to make sure this person could, get into this contract, or, so many different things. So just kind of keeping track of all that is a big part of what it takes to, be a real estate and what real estate involves.
Definitely, bro. And how do you like it? I
love it. I absolutely that's the thing. It's like, I don't know why I like it so much, but I totally love it. I mean, everything from one, low key, I did kind of want to be able to just walk into homes when I was looking to become a real estate agent. So that was a big thing too. Now just being able to just go see different places and just see like, oh, that's nice. I like how they did that there. I like how they designed it. So I love that aspect of it. I also like the negotiation standpoint, because it's just like, as a finance major, just being that close to the numbers and being that close to just like to be able to represent people, especially represent like my friends and, friends of friends and people like that. Oh my gosh, it's been incredible. Because it's just so many interesting things come up And it's, you got to kind of be a little competitive for the space too, which I'm extremely competitive. So just being able to make sure I'm like getting the best deal, making sure that, we're communicating what we want, what the client wants. And we're just seeing the whole thing through. That's like, I totally love it. It's been amazing.
Yeah, that's dope, man. And, I've always kind of viewed the real estate agent as like, sort of like the middleman for the home buyer and the home seller, but also sort of definitely the expertise, because a lot of people that have real estate don't really know anything about real estate. They just know Zillow said it was worth this much. But I wanted to ask you, what is the negotiation process like? Because you're not speaking directly to the seller, right? Unless they're not being represented by an agent, or how does that work?
Yeah, so typically a negotiation process looks like you have two parties represented. So I would, if I'm the buyer's agent, I'm representing the buyer. Another agent would be representing the seller. So I would start off, if I'm interested in the home, I look at, the listing price, and I have to decide on, what price I'm going to offer for this home. So I'm going to meet with my client to see, how much they're, willing to pay, what they think the home's worth. I'm going to run numbers and do research on the area to see, how is that home compared to other homes in the area, are there other developments, things I need to take into consideration and all of that. Once I've done that research, I've looked into the home, looked into the condo association, looked into, things like soil in the area and other things. Maybe is it near airports or things that could affect the purchase. Once I've done all that research, I'm going to present that first price. From there, the seller has an option to either counter, right? They can come back and say, hey, you know what? We actually want you to pay a little more. They could accept the offer. They could say, hey, we're cool with that. We're going to accept it. Or they could decline it and say, hey, look, that doesn't work for us. We don't even want to keep going back and forth. We're just going to decline it straight up. And so now the negotiation process has been really interesting because the market's so tight. A lot of times you're getting into bidding wars or you're getting into these negotiations very frequently. So a lot of times you may present an offer, say, hey, look, I want to buy this place for $400,000. And there's two other people that have also offered, maybe somebody offered $405,000, maybe somebody offered $395,000. So now you're kind of in this, what they call a bidding war, or you're kind of in these negotiations trying to get your client to be able to win that home against other interested buyers. And that's what we find a lot. I mean, right now, the DC housing market is through the roof. It's going crazy. So we find that all the time. Maryland, Virginia, and that's really just the state of the U.S. housing market to some extent. It's just like it's so tight that a lot of times you have to get into those sort of situations. So there are things like you may put in like an escalation clause, which is basically to say, hey, I'm going to offer $400,000. If another buyer comes in and offers you $405,000, I have a clause to escalate my price to $410,000, $5,000 above their price, right? So it's knowing things like that to basically be able to help you sort of in those negotiations and in those situations, because in this tight market, there's so many things that come up. I mean, there's so many things that come up, so it's just important to know how to kind of maneuver that aspect of real estate. So.
Definitely, man. And you said a lot. I wanted to ask, you mentioned checking the soil.
Yeah, like there are all kinds of things. So like, one of the things is like, some people, for one, on the buyer side, sometimes people don't want to purchase property that is on certain types of soil. So that's just little things like that, right? Of like, hey, we might have to inspect the soil to see if like there's been erosion. Right? Like I had a case where in the back of the home, there was like all around the home, there's grass, but in this one section of the back of the home, there's literally like no grass, it's soil. You can see the dirt, right? So it's like, now we may have to inspect to see, hey, is it a case of erosion here? What's the situation? Is this just because this area is not getting enough sunlight? But things like that, can play a big factor when it comes to purchasing a home, for that much money. People want to know. So, on the buyer side, you got to kind of do that research. And sometimes the seller or the seller's agent can kind of provide that information. Sometimes the sellers are really, friendly and open, and they're like, hey, the situation back here behind the home, this is what happened. and it's very easy to move forward. But in other cases, maybe somebody's hiding something, right? Maybe there's something you have to discover. Maybe there are things that, haven't been fully disclosed. So it's, by law, they have to disclose everything, right? But every now and then there are other things that you may have to, find out on your own. So that's where a home inspection comes into place, right? And things like that. So, you may have to get an arborist, to look at the flowers and, the trees. It's all kinds of things that can come up. So it's interesting.
Definitely, yeah. I wasn't even thinking about that. That's crazy. That's a lot. And you know what? I think in the world of like being an agent and dealing with retail buyers, where most of them are getting their funds from the bank, those checklists become a lot more detailed than the investing world when you're dealing with people who have cash or, hard money or something like that, where it's like, do the numbers make sense? Okay, let's see what we can do. It's a smoother process, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. That's 100% true.
It's so, like, as a real estate agent, though, I feel like you're trusted already. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people are like, oh, word, you got that title? Then people are kind of like, they're already trusting you as a professional. Where I feel like in the investing world, when you're new in it, it's kind of like you have to prove you know what you're talking about. And I know it's like that with being a real estate agent as well. Because how does someone even choose a real estate agent?
That's a good question. A lot of times you do have to go into your network and pick people that you trust. That's just the reality of it, right? You want to do your research. You want to see, like, maybe you talk to a few agents, talk to them about the process, see, like, how well do they understand the process? Can they kind of walk you through it in advance before you even decide to go with them? You balance that with also mixing it with making sure you're meeting up with people that you trust or people you know them through someone else. But like, to your point, as an agent, there's an extreme amount of pressure because we're coming in and, some people are trusting us with these huge transactions. So you really want to make sure you have people that are thorough, people that are good with data, people that are good with research. Because that's a lot of it. And then as well as, people that understand the process. So
yeah, definitely, man. So let me ask, what is your marketing looking like? Like, how do you sort of get your name out there? Are you aggressive with it? Are you cold calling lists? Are you know what I mean? What are you doing? And you ain't got to spill no secrets or anything, but
yeah, no, 100%. It's a valid question. I think so. For right now, I honestly haven't been that aggressive with it. I started by just working with people that have reached out to me asking about buying a home, right? Just people that I was already friends with, connected with, through social media. And so I worked with them. Few people bought there. Outside of that, I have some other people I work with within my brokerage that have passed me some people. I'm licensed in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Sometimes I'm working with agents that only do D.C. and they see somebody in Maryland, they may pass me that referral and have me.
Oh, so you're good in the whole DMV.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'm good across the whole DMV.
That's dope.
So, that's really been the majority of what I've been doing. I haven't really done much on the advertising front because it is really just a part-time thing for me. I want to make sure, one, I'm having fun with it. Yeah. That's kind of like most important for me personally. It's just like making sure I'm just enjoying being an agent. Because the moment I feel like, I got to call people up and I got to, bother people that I'm, friends with and family, and I'm, just doing a little too much, I think that's when I may start to look at real estate a little differently. So yeah. I haven't, the most advertised, I think I put out one ad on Facebook, and I need to go back on Facebook. Facebook is really awesome. The way you can sort of advertise yourself and market in different areas, different demographics, the way they've broken it down is interesting. It's a little scary, but it's good for if you're looking to start up a business. So Facebook's advertisement thing, that's been one thing I've kind of looked into. I haven't really done much of it. I started like a Facebook page, but that's about it. I'm really kind of just going through. I think
Facebook has been ranked like the number one for online advertisement is Facebook, and I think it's because of how detailed of an audience you can market to. Because that 40 I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but for the most part, I say like 45 and up, they're not really on Instagram or anything like that for the most part.
Yeah.
But everybody is on Facebook. You know, you can bet that. And then, yeah, just the deep, man, Facebook marketing is so detailed. It's so much like I've been trying to get into it, but it is literally something you have to, in order to be good at it and not just waste your money, you really got to kind of spend some time with learning how to do all of that. Or you can hire like a third-party company to do it for you. But to really understand, there's a lot into it, man. There's a lot that goes into it for sure.
Yeah, that's real. I mean, it is interesting. I'm still trying to learn it myself. I mean, hopefully I'll get really good at it. I got some people I've been working with on it just to kind of learn about, like you said, like all the ways to just advertise and reach out to different people.
Yeah, man.
So that'll be next.
And I think that what you said, that you're just having fun with it that's the dopest part about it, because then you can, and that's how I am with this podcast. You can move at your own pace. There's no pressure behind you to, dang, I got to bang out this list. I got to bang out these, like, you know what I mean? You just moving at your own pace, and everything that comes your way is an opportunity that turns into a blessing, whether it's a check or it's a valuable lesson learned throughout the process. Like, you can't lose, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think people see you pick up a new thing for money, and it's kind of like, you know, oh, is there a pressure? They want to make sure there's not a pressure on you, you know, to kind of do too much in the space. And like you said, it's really all just about, you know, whether it's a podcast or real estate or whatever thing you're doing on the side, it's about having fun with it, you know, number one. You know, because I've had so many people just kind of reach out like, oh, did you quit your day job? I'm like, no, I did. I'm just kind of doing this on the side. I truly have enjoyed it. I promise. Like, you know, I tell people, I'm like, I promise the moment I stop having fun with it, it's out the door. I mean, it's nothing to
I'm done with it. So. That's what's up, man. So, let me think. I had another question I wanted to ask you as far as being an agent goes. How many deals have you closed so far?
So I've closed 3 deals. 3 deals so far. So yeah, I've just kind of, you know, I closed 2 of them with my good friends. I mean, so 2 of them I was just really focused on getting them. They told me they wanted to move to DC. I mean, you know about DC housing market is crazy. So it was literally like finding a needle in a haystack. And then third guy, I worked with him in Baltimore. So, yeah, he was more so on the investment tip. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that one a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I work with, investors more so kind of approach it from a different standpoint. They're kind of looking at it to see how much money are we going to make each month. Unless they're investing for appreciation, which is probably usually considered a whole different thing, they're usually trying to see, based on the number of tenants or renters we have in this place, how much money am I going to make after my costs, right? So we're looking at pretty much really just pulling rent rolls to see how much money have these people paid over the past few months. And then we're looking to see what are the costs, what's the situation there, you know, how much is this place going to cost you each month? And then we kind of go from there. So I guess I'll say this year has been interesting because with COVID, you'll see a lot of like COVID forbearance come up with certain places. So that's something, you know, for any investors listening, something to keep in mind is like, make sure that if you're buying a place, you're looking at those rent rolls and make sure you don't see anything disclosed around, you know, COVID forbearance, because then, you know, it's basically a situation where, unfortunately, somebody may not be able to make their payment. And as unfortunate as that is, you don't want to then end up having to swallow that cost. So it's just things like that are kind of things you look at when you're looking at it from an investment perspective rather than from a, hey, I want to live here kind of perspective.
Definitely, man. And yeah, I know that whole thing where people were kind of protected for not paying rent. If they couldn't pay rent, I won't say for not paying rent, but if they couldn't pay rent, they were essentially protected from any evictions or anything like that. I know that's going around. So yeah, and that would be a tough pill to swallow. I'm not gonna lie, but that's just one of those things that's a risk associated with investing. And that's crazy just how things trickle down. Like, because of this is implemented, you might not be getting paid. You know what I mean? It's just, it's crazy. The domino effect of everything, man. It really is. But so 3 deals closed, man. That's awesome. So you hit the ground kind of running with it.
Yeah, hey man, I'm trying. I'm trying to keep it going.
That's what's
Doing
up,
the best I
man.
can.
You said, hold on.
No, I was just saying I'm doing the best I can. Sorry, I
Oh
might have
yeah,
broke up.
definitely, man. So let me ask you, what do you kind of, what's the biggest thing you've learned as far as real estate through being an agent? Do you feel like you're obviously have to be more knowledgeable about the process, but what about just real estate in general? Like, has the importance of it kind of come to light to you more, or?
Yeah, the importance has definitely come to light for me. I mean, I think the biggest thing I'm kind of focused on with real estate, when I think about this whole thing of like urbanization and like all these people moving to cities, I think that's something I've just really been tracking now as an agent. It's like just seeing how that affects everything. So I've kind of learned just like, I don't know if it's a takeaway or what, but just seeing this trend of like, people literally trying to move into cities. People are interested in, I guess, living a lot closer to each other. I guess certain cities have like this kind of community feel. So that's been interesting. But at the same time, with COVID, that's kind of slowed down, at least temporarily. So I'm kind of learning a lot about that as a trend. I'm just learning in general, just about, more about the importance of, the real estate market in the context of, the country as a whole. So that's been interesting as well. So, I mean, there've been so many takeaways. There's like high level sort of trend takeaways, and then there's more like specific takeaways of like, okay, well, when I'm going to settle on a home, maybe I need to reconsider my title insurance and things like that. So
just things you weren't thinking about before.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so dope, man. That's awesome, bro. So let me ask you, man. I know this is probably, I would say, a year. I want to transition into music, and it relates to the whole real estate and investing and everything that we've been speaking about, because I feel like this is a year again where people have had more time to kind of look at who they are. You know what I mean? And it goes down to like what you choose to do with your money, to what you choose to do with your time, to, okay, if you are using your time for like solely entertainment, right? What kind of entertainment are you absorbing? Like, what are you feeding your mind? What does your Instagram feed look like, or your Twitter look like, or your Facebook, or suggested videos and things like that? And with that being said, again, this is just from my world, right? When I turn on my phone, I feel like the world that I'm looking at just seems to be more aware. Like, I feel like having these conversations about financial literacy and taking that step forward has become almost not trendy in a bad way, but just like everybody's doing it. Everybody's kind of on the wave. Like, you see, at least, again, this is from my searches and things like that. You see different podcasts, and I was watching I know you've heard of the Earn Your Leisure podcast.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Did you see the episode? And you might even know of the brand, but the kid, I forget his name. I think he's in either like Brooklyn or Harlem or something, and he has the Spurgo.
I don't think I saw it.
You gotta watch that one. It's a kid who, he's like, he ain't even 13 yet, but he has his own clothing brand, and he's a young boss. And I'm just looking at that, and I'm like, there's never been a time where these things have been so highlighted and easily accessible for us to watch and get motivated on. But then I'll have certain conversations with people that, I may have grown up with, or we may have been friends, and they're not even, that's a whole different world to them. And it's just because of what they choose to put their focuses on, like their music, their title playlist may be full of a certain type of music, whereas to mine is literally giving the game to life through a rap song, you know what I mean? Whether it's Jay-Z or Nipsey Hussle and things like that. And I know that music is such a huge influence on our culture and our generation. And I wanted to know, what do you think of sort of like 2020 has been sort of a quiet year, real weird year as far as music and things go. But what do you think of like the state of hip hop? Because I feel like hip hop speaks for the culture almost like solely. You know what I mean? Like the trends, everything like that. What do you think about it right now?
Hip hop is interesting. I think overall the barriers to entry have sort of been lowered. I think in the past, you had to have a certain level of lyrical talent, a certain level of bars, if you will, right, to get into space and to be recognized on the radio and, all these things. Whereas now the barriers of entry have kind of lowered in the sense that you got all these ways to sort of brand yourself, through social media and different streaming platforms. And even in terms of the sounds that people can consume, it's not just necessarily that you have to come on and rap, right? It's easier to sing on a rap song now. You got auto-tune and all these things. So it's an interesting time for hip hop. And I think as it continues to expand and as more people continue to enter the space, there are going to be more cultures that also sort of adapt to hip hop and want to, sort of maybe take from, maybe add to. We see hip hop branching into a lot of other different avenues, whether it's like Afro beats, right? Or like you got hip hop mixing it with reggae. You got people like Drake, doing a whole spectrum. So it's an interesting time overall, I guess. But I also do think, like, to some extent, it seems like the sound has become a little darker than it's been, in the past, a little more raw. And the truth is, and it's always, I guess there's always been truth. It's always been raw. But when I say darker, it just seems like, sometimes the music is now a little more kind of in your face than maybe it's been before. And so, I guess you could say, even as I'm saying that, I'm like, I don't know. There are some old school hip hop songs and, that are also kind of in your face, give you that raw sort of perspective. But it's taken an interesting turn. I guess that's my point. It's taken a very interesting turn.
I love what you said. Like the barrier of entry has been lowered because, there's some. What I feel like is going on. I feel like, and Dick Gregory said something like this about if my mother who was a slave nursed your white baby for 400 years, how long until he becomes a nigger or something like that, and it's just talking about sort of like the transition where it's like, and it's always like people have always stolen from the black culture and our inventions, if you will, you know what I'm saying? The things that the innovativeness that we have and the things that we create. But I feel like now it's almost like I'll be listening to something, I'm like, oh, that was a white person saying that? And it's not even that I have anything against it, but it's just the shock of it. Like, dang, that literally anybody can do this. Anybody can imitate that sound now, and depending on where you're at and what's played, it dictates like what's leading the way as far as what some may classify as hip hop. But I think that the true like essence of it is definitely alive and well and more present than ever. Through people like J. Cole, definitely Nipsey Hussle before he passed, Jay-Z, like this stuff that Jay-Z comes out with, I'm like, yo, this man is like literally telling people, like you said, just in your face, like the What's Free song with Meek Mill, like that right there. I'm like, damn, this is the type of information that they would try to hide from us back in the day. Like, and now it's so like, and that's why I just always like, I'm constantly feeling motivated. I'm constantly feeling like I can do more. And like, like there's definitely the playing ground might not be equal, but the opportunity is definitely there as far as it comes to like knowing what game you're in. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Yeah. And I just feel
that's so true.
Yeah, man.
That's so true.
And I just I honestly hate to see the bullshit get spread, because it's like for some people, like where I'm from, that's literally what guides them into everything, like their thought processes, their the choices they make. You know what I'm saying? It really, like, the playlist that they have playing is sort of guiding them, and it's just like, damn, man, I'm just tired of seeing that destruction through entertainment. You know what I mean? Being pushed to us. But at this point in life, man, we have so much control. We have these fucking laptops in our hand all day, like these phones, you know, with the ability to research anything. That it's like there's really no excuse if you're letting yourself be fed this garbage. It's kind of a choice, but it's just like, it's refreshing to know that there is definitely a audience and a crowd that still gravitates towards things that you can take from, you know what I mean, and help build yourself with. And like me personally, bro, I've kind of flooded out all the ignorant stuff that I used to listen to, because it literally used to affect me. Like, it would affect my vocabulary. You know what I mean? I still feel like I struggle with that because of the things that I let influence me. You know what I mean? And it's just like, before I even knew I was in a game, I was already in a game. You know what I mean? Being programmed. So, and that's why, like, to me, music selection is so important, because a lot of people can't. I know there's a time to have that balance of hood shit and ratchetness, but a lot of people don't understand. Like, sometimes you gotta turn it off, bro.
That's so true.
You know what I mean?
You know, it's hard sometimes for people to, you know, separate the music from the lifestyle, you know, as well, you know, because it's a lot of people that, you know, I mean, like you said, it's just like when you're consuming that every day, how could it not sort of seep into your mindset? And depending on what you're consuming, that can play a big role in, you know, your life and your outlook and what you're doing for yourself. So
yeah, definitely, because I feel like the music that I chose to listen to definitely influenced my view of school when I was in high school, which led to my not going to college. You know what I'm saying? Which led to my trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing, to the, oh shit, life is passing me by. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just little, like, before we even know we being programmed, it's already happening. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just through the form of entertainment. But I wanted to ask you, man, because you're someone who, you know, has gone to school, has bodied that, and now is in the workforce, and you have a career. Like, you know, you're doing real estate. You're a real estate agent on the side. Like, that's something that I feel like is incredible, because there are some people who that's everything, you know, and nothing wrong with that. But you've put in the work to now that can be a side hustle. You can have fun with that. Like, and that just speaks volume to your discipline and your mind being made up that you was going to complete school and become what you become now. What are some of the things you learned through those college years that kept you on track? Because I know that you had to have distractions throughout those years in college.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. I mean, for me, it's just like a lot of it was like my influences, and like, you know, I was able to surround myself with like really good influences, and I think that's like such an important factor. It's like when you go to college, you're around so many different types of people. I mean, it's completely different from high school in the sense that it's like there's just a much bigger pool of people that you could decide to surround yourself with. And I was around so many people that just came from like the poorest of poor backgrounds, man. Like people that were just like, listen, like, you know, I don't have anything to go home to. I don't have any other option. So I'm going to execute, you know, what I'm doing on a day-to-day like you've never seen. I mean, these are people that like make me look, you know what I mean? Like anything, like just in the sense that like their work ethic is just something that I just admire. And so I think by being able to be around those people and just kind of gravitating towards those people, because I've been so inspired by, you know, just different people I've come across along the way. It's like that kind of is what keeps me going. It's what gets me up. It's knowing that like I have friends to this day that are definitely working harder than me, and it's like that's gonna keep me, you know, going. And I just hope that doesn't stop, you know.
That's what's up, man. It sounds like your circle is definitely one where you're being pushed. Like you gotta push yourself just to fit in, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a great foundation, man. And I can hear it in you, man, that you're that you're doing great things and you're on the way to even better things. What do you feel like? What are you gearing towards as far as the future? Like, what does the future hold for you? Where are you trying to take everything?
I mean, in the future, like, I just want to be somebody that, people can come to for knowledge in different spaces. Like, I want to be able to talk real estate as much as I can talk stocks, as much as I can talk music, as much as I can talk, just all these different things. I want to be very knowledgeable in. And I think that's when I'll feel content and, happy and successful, is like when I'm just in a place of like, when I can go to all people from different walks of life, and just be able to explain the things that I've learned, or just be literally just a wealth of knowledge, so that people can keep pursuing what it is that they want to pursue. And at the same time, I want to inspire people. I mean, there have been so many people that have inspired me. I'm like, they made it clear that I have to do the same thing for the next group of people coming behind me. They're like, listen, like, if you're inspired by me, this is what people that inspire do. We focus on the next group. So, I'm doing things on the side. Like, I'm trying to start up a nonprofit right now for like basically a spinoff of an organization I was in college. And I'm doing things like that to just sort of inspire that next generation, as well as just teach if I can. But just try to be helpful, because I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, as we continue to get older, community is going to be everything. And a strong community, a successful community, is one in where it's like, who you can tap on for what things, and those people are reliable, right? Like, I want people in my corner to know that if you come to me with a real estate situation or a question, or you need help in a certain space, like, I'm actually going to be somebody that can actually provide something, bring something to the table. And I have people that I see doing the same thing in my circle. You're doing your thing. It's other people like, just working on different spaces. And so hopefully, as we just continue to grow, we can all just tap on each other and sort of learn and gain from each other. I think that's what it's all about.
Man, that's beautiful, bro. That is really beautiful, because that's exactly what I'm trying to do through this podcast. And though I'm in the beginning stages of it, I'm planting seeds for what it's going to become and what I want it to ultimately be, which is just interviewing people that have a certain mindset that their mind is made up. They're going to get it done. You know what I mean? Whether it's whatever it may be, entrepreneurship is the focus, but it really applies to anything, like a student, grinding it out through college, like just anything. So just tapping into those people's minds and just kind of getting their stories and just drawing inspiration from those people. Because just this episode alone, I can't wait to go back and just listen to all the gems you've been dropping. But I wanted to ask you, give me top 3 must reads for 2021.
My top 3 must reads. So,
but these are books. These are books that you've already read that you suggesting to people.
Yeah, 100%. So I think number 1 for me will probably be Good to Great. Just a really excellent book that looks at some of the great companies in the world, what they did well, the things they could have done better, and just like it kind of assesses things from like a case study perspective. So that's a really great book for anybody just in a business space or what have you. Number 2 would probably for me be The Power of Habit. The Power of Habit is interesting because it kind of breaks down this idea of like everything we do is based in habit. So literally our day-to-day is just really just one big habit. It's like you wake up, you're eating, it's a habit, you're driving, it's a habit. If you can hone those habits, you can go very far in life, and it'll kind of set yourself apart. It'll help you set yourself apart. And then I think that the obvious number 3 for me, which I guess I'm cheating a little bit here because I haven't finished it yet, but the memoir for Barack Obama has been very interesting. I just got it, and I think it's a must read, just considering like the times and the way he assesses his time as a president, whether you agree with him or not, just to sort of hear his thoughts. I think is insightful. So that would be my three. Number one, good to great. Number two, the power of habit. And then three, promised land, Barack Obama. That's my count.
Beautiful, man. And what about any advice for anybody listening that is thinking about, entering the real estate world as far as becoming an agent or anything like that? What advice would you shoot them?
Yeah, I would say, man, like, one, check your ego at the door. It's a humbling process of just like, it's a humbling process, man. Especially if you've never been in like client services and just like, I've never really been in this type of business where I'm like this client facing in the sense of just like working with everyday people is different, especially if you're coming out of like a corporate space or something like that. So check your ego, but also just like be inquisitive, ask questions. Connect with the right people. A lot of agents are always open to talking to people, so get on the phone with people, ask them tons of questions, and then kind of go from there. But don't be afraid to put yourself out there and let people know what you do.
That's for sure, man. Your network is your net worth, and the only way your network is gonna grow is by putting yourself out there. You got to be the one that just jumps up in the class and introduces themselves. You know what I mean? You got to really stand out and make yourself vulnerable, because staying in that box is only going to get you so far.
Yeah, that's sure, so true.
Well, listen, Austin, man, I appreciate you coming on to the show. Again, my apologies. It was a little bit scattered out this time, but we're definitely going to have you back on at a later date, and we'll get deeper into some of these conversations. But real quick, where can everybody find you if they want to reach out to you? I got a couple people that live in the DMV area, PG County. Where can everybody find you if they want to hit you up or follow what you have going on?
Yes, sir. Follow me on Instagram, just_Jonesin. So JUST_JONESIN. You can also email me at austinj@kw.com if you're interested in learning more about real estate. Want to chop it up from there. And then, aside from that, if you have any friends that, want to learn more and want to talk, hit up Alex, and, hopefully you just give my contact, tell them to reach out. Would love to meet new people, and, that's what I'm here for.
Mic check.